Thank you, Prémée, for answering some questions for Fantastinet. First of all, as it was the first time that you are published in France since 1 year, can you introduce yourself to our visitors?
Sure, yeah. My name is Prémée Mohamed. My pronouns in English are she, her, and I'm a scientist and writer based in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. So as people have been asking, sadly, no, that is not the francophone part of Canada, that is the anglophone part. I write short fiction, novellas, novels, and I focus primarily on science fiction, fantasy, and horror, and books that are all three.
And what are the influence you have with in terms of literature, and what is the link between your studies and what you write?
Oh, good question. Actually, a lot of my influences growing up were science fiction and fantasy. Especially very young, I got very much into Terry Pratchett, Diane Duane, Barbara Hambly, Monica Hughes, who is an Edmonton-based writer. I loved Lloyd Alexander. I liked William Gibson. As I got a little bit older, I got more into Ursula K. Le Guin, one of my favorite authors, Gene Wolfe. On the I guess, non-science fiction and fantasy side, I love Faulkner and Umberto Eco and William Burroughs, and people who are doing interesting things with language. So if I think of contemporary writers, people like Vajra Chandrasekhara, who is now one of my favorite authors, which shouldn't be possible because he only has 2 books out. But and Simon Jimenez and Claire North, and in terms of how they affected my current writing, I think it's hard to say. And the more I think about it, I think the harder it gets, because we don't always know what's going to influence how we write or what ideas show up in our writing. So being a scientist, my whole life just about, I've worked in science for about 25 years. It's difficult to say what of my actual work has shown up in my fiction, but I think it's more the mindset. I think knowing how to research, knowing where to find information, knowing whether the information is true, or whether it's valid, or whether it's biased, or it's misinformation or disinformation or propaganda, or whether it's been paid for by a corporation or paid for by a government, and then kind of forming patterns out of a huge amount of information and putting that into a story with a beginning, middle, end. So I think science is very much like writing fiction that way. So I'm coming at fiction from the scientific mindset, but I think that's a benefit rather than a drawback.
And in France, you have 4 novellas, short novel. I don't know if we use a novella in Canada that have been published. Amazing. No? It was amazing for you to have a 4.
Yes, that was really amazing. French was the #1 language I wanted to get my books translated into. So when I started publishing, I had my fingers crossed. Oh, please, let's sell French rights. It was curious to me that we didn't sell French rights in Canada, but we sold them in France to the French, and now they're being sold back to Canada. But apparently there's some very, very complicated setup with Quebec translation rights in Canada as opposed to like European translation rights. So I don't know. My agent takes care of that. But yes, this was incredible. And last night was the first time I heard my work read out loud in French. So that was quite amazing.
Yes, because you received yesterday the Verlanger Prize for the annual migration of clouds, and we speak through the mountain. It was a surprise for you?
Yeah. They told me the day before, but I said, well, don't we find out at the ceremony? And my publisher said, no, we already know. And then that means we can put the little paper marker on the book so we can sell more books in the bookstore. So I did know in advance, but I didn't know who the other winner was.
So you discovered Katia yesterday?
Yes. And then we went out to dinner, which was nice.
And so the annual migration of clouds and We Speak Through the Mountain are in the same universe, in a Post-Apo world. Could you explain us what drives to this future?
Yeah, good question. I don't suppose this will sound very optimistic, but I hope it sounds accurate. Really, when I started writing them, I was writing about the disease, cadastrolomyces, which is a hereditary fungal symbiont in the book. And it's terminal. It can be disabling. It causes a great deal of pain. It causes visual symptoms, physical symptoms. It may affect people's behavior and people's thoughts. And when I started writing the story, I thought, if it was set now, why wouldn't we just cure it? So I thought, okay, I want to put this in a time where I can show the disease. So maybe I will put it in the past, and then we don't know how to cure it. But the more I thought about it, the more I thought, I want there to be an explanation for what's happening to people, but I don't want us to fix it. How can I do that? So I put it in the future, but I made sure it was a future where research and science and kind of industrialized or electrified civilization has sort of collapsed, and people are trying to rebuild. So they know what the disease is, but they don't have the technology anymore to do anything about it. And because of my work in environmental science, when I wrote that, I had been working as an environmental scientist for many years. I couldn't picture a future where climate change hadn't caused all of these disasters, kind of what they call the polycrisis. I don't know if we use that term in French, but disaster after disaster, changes to the weather, to rainfall, to water levels in streams, to vegetation, to wildlife, to the soil, to infrastructure, to human systems and to natural systems. And that was what I put in the book kind of as the circumstances around Reed's life, the main character, to say, we know what happened and we knew why, but the people of the past didn't do anything about it, because sci-fi really, when you get down to it, is all about choices. And it's about, no matter when it's set, it's about the choices we are making now that cause a future to happen like the one in the book.
And we follow Reid, a young girl with a community infected with a very special mushroom. We say mushroom?
Yeah, fungal, yeah.
And which parts out of your knowledge you use to create this relationship between the nature, in fact, the mushroom and the character?
Oh yeah, I could talk about that all day. No, because, like I said, I came up with the disease first. I had actually... This was in 2019. I had been scrolling Twitter and I saw a preprint paper for something about a hereditary symbiont. And I said, isn't that so interesting? Wouldn't that be a good sci-fi story? So I rushed off to create this disease based kind of on Ophiocordyceps, which obviously a lot of people know about, especially from M.R. Carey's The Girl with All the Gifts. Wolbachia, which is a very, very common insect symbiont that affects fertility and survival in insects. And, the behavior modifying aspects of things like parasitic wasps and parasitic worms, especially, and bacteria and amoeba. The more you get into it, the more you realize the whole world is just a mass of parasites. But I was interested also in the behavioral modification effects of a lot of parasites, including ones in humans. Just as an example, the E. coli in your gut makes things like dopamine and serotonin, which are neurotransmitters. Your body can't tell the difference between the ones made by your brain and the ones made by your stomach or your intestines. So if you feel a sudden surge of happiness, is that really you? Is that your brain? Or is that your bacteria? Who is feeling that happiness, or who is causing that to happen? So I developed this disease that had a long latency period so that you couldn't necessarily test for it. And I also wanted to look at what kind of world do we get under these circumstances. How does society change? How do demographics change? Do people stop having children? Do only rich people have children? What happens to fertility rates? What happens to reproductive choice? What happens when you run out of young people to do the work? Does it make everything fall apart faster? What about a massive population of disabled people? Who will look after them? It has to be other disabled people because the non-disabled people are running out. So that was what I also wanted to explore. And the novella length is very short, so I'm actually glad that my publisher came back and asked for more books so that I could explore the world a little bit more.
Yes, because it's not the only subject, because I see in your book, in the first one, especially, there is a lot about transmission, the people, the planet that we will give to the descendants, the transmission of the collectivity and the village, and the transmission within the family. So it's thematics that are very important for you?
Yes, yeah. The idea, and I think Reid talks about it as well, this idea of the transmission of knowledge, this kind of, she thinks of it as a chain rather than kind of as a web. So she thinks, you know, knowledge, as well as this disease, as well as kind of your culture and your family and really who you are, gets passed down through the years. So what do you do if it breaks? And I think the answer for everybody is different. Some people try to recover exactly what there was. Some people want to start a new chain. Some people just give up and they don't transmit the knowledge anymore. And I think Reid's community is kind of scraping along, trying to put the chain back together, even though they know they can't, because a lot of that knowledge has been lost. So that's something she thinks about a lot. And that really drives a lot of her decisions in the book, to go out into the world and seek new knowledge.
And I have so many questions about this one, but I just want to talk too about another novella that has been published earlier this year, and what can we offer you tonight? The story is about Winfield, a woman that has been killed by a man, but not already dead finally. Is it a subject that is easy to address, feminicide?
No,
I have the answer, of course.
Yeah, no, it's not, and especially, of course, I'm a woman writing about a woman who's been killed. But this was sort of a response to Jean Wolfe's interlinked trio of novellas, The Fifth Head of Kerberos. And the first of those novellas is narrated by, focuses on the child of a man who owns one of these brothels, one of these sex work places. Very, very high-end, very expensive. Only rich people can afford to go there. But it focuses so much on the owner and his son, and you don't really find out about the workers there, what they do, how they feel about where they work, how they live, how they survive this type of life. Do they hate it? Do they tolerate it? Do they think they would do anything else in the world except this? Or do they think, well, this is okay? Or, I wanted to get into their heads, and that's where the book came from. It was kind of as a response to that, from the point of view of one of the workers in this very high-end brothel. So it's not related to the story, but it's the same aesthetics. And the amount of violence against women and girls in literature of all kinds, I think, seems very accepted. People put it in their books because it seems like a normal part of life. And in this case, I guess I wanted to say, just because it may be sort of statistically normal for women and girls to be the subjects of violence more often, it doesn't mean we can't write about them being angry about it, being aware of it, and getting their revenge. So it is a revenge story. It's quite violent. It was cathartic to write, I think, but the murder of Winfield is kind of the core of the book, and that was very upsetting to write. Yeah.
And there is a question that is very interesting within this novella, is that finally all people externally to this kind of story wonder about the reason why no one speak, and you give some way of thinking on why people don't answer, because the women are under control, this kind of stuff. Do you want through this novella to say to people, you need to speak, you need to say?
I hope so, but I also understand the consequences. What's the saying? Men are afraid that women will laugh at them, and women are afraid men will kill them. And there have been so many instances of women speaking up, trying to use their voice, and having, retaliation immediately, being brutalized or being murdered or being imprisoned or worse. And I think the way through this is to say, kind of like in the book, to remember that if you're speaking up, you're not expected to speak up alone. If you have a community around you, you are safer than if you try to do it alone, because there is that power in numbers, but there's also a power in recognizing that you don't have to be alone.
And so it's finally 30 minutes is very short to address.
Sorry, and I've been talking a lot too. Sorry.
No, it's perfect. I have a question about your novel, because today Beneath the Rising has not been translated into French. Do you think, have you any idea of its on the loop, perhaps in a few months or not?
No, I live in hope. That one, the trilogy, I guess, and The Siege of Burning Grass, which won the Aurora Award earlier this year and was a finalist for the Ursula K. Le Guin Prize, which I was very excited about, because Ursula K. Le Guin, of course, is a literary hero of mine. And to be on the shortlist with that particular book, which is about pacifism in a time of war, was very meaningful for me. So fingers crossed. Somebody make me an offer.
Yes, we will ask to the attempt where you are published in France.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. I discovered all your novellas this year. It was a real pleasure to read them.
Thank you so much.
It was so different between the 4 ones, because I have started The Butcher of the Forest 2 days ago. So I will say you, and thank you.
Thank you. This was wonderful.